Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Eliphas Levi. This is Transcendental Magic, its Doctrine and Ritual. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material and the link for my book, so you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of Transcendental Magic, its Doctrine and Ritual, with Part 2, Chapter 11, The Great Work. It's going to be a short one today because the next chapter is one I want to devote the entire time to, so let's dig in. Chapter 11, The Great Work. To be ever rich, to be always young, and to die never, such, from all time, has been the dream of the alchemist. Alright, so, straight off the top, this is a horrible, horrible, horrible set of motivations, right? To be rich, it'd be nice. It really would. To be able to pay for anything at any point in time, that would be great, but for most people, that is not life. And beyond that, it should not be the goal of life. Money, monetary possessions, the physical plane, not necessarily where your attention should be, right? You are meant to be fully invested in this life. You are here for an experience. It is not a punishment. You're not on a prison planet. You're not being condemned. You will, however, have to toil. Motivations in magical work is more important than anything else that you do. You properly setting your intentions makes all the difference in the world as to what the results will be. If you are intending to be rich, you will attract the opposite. I know, that sounds counterintuitive. Your motivations being, I want to be rich, are negative. You will pull negative. To be always young is stupid. You do not want that. You should be young at heart. You should alchemize the gold, right? All of the bad things that happen, turn them into beautiful things. As you age, as you grow, you should never have as your goal to die never. That again is a terrible idea. That has led to more problems than probably anything else. People seeking to live forever has led to all of our control systems. It has led to all of the things that are holding us back from our full potential. The alchemist is to take the circumstances, all of the lessons that hit you, even the shitty ones, and to alchemize them into gold. Now, do they do other things? Yeah, they play with herbs. They distill spirits. They vaporize things, right? They experiment with science. That they do. They were even seeking medicines, yes, but the goal should not be eternal life, period, right? The soul is eternal, the body is not, never will be. It is a frivolous pursuit and negative. You are focusing, instead of how can I live the best life I have right here, right now, on how can I make myself live forever so that then I can live the best life I can possibly live. Live it now. It is supposed to be lived right now. This first line right here is horrible. Absolutely horrible. If you are aligned in this way, it will not lead to good things. Back to the text. To change lead, mercury, and all other metals into gold, to possess the universal medicine and elixir of life. Such is the problem which must be solved to accomplish this desire and to realize this dream. And here's where I point out that we have made a metal out of another metal. We have created gold. Right? We did it with bismuth. I'm pretty sure that we've done it with lead. Right? I haven't gone back and done the reading to make sure that it was lead they used the second time, but I know for a fact that it was bismuth the first time. They took it, they bombarded it with electromagnetic energies, and they changed one substance into another. They fundamentally changed the elemental makeup of this element, right? Bismuth is an element. It is on the periodic chart. They changed it from bismuth into gold. It was an immense power sink. I mean, immense. It was nowhere near a recompensatory effect. The amount of gold was minuscule. The amount of power spent was enormous. That doesn't mean that they can't make it more efficient, but it is possible to do this. It is only possible through the electromagnetic forces of creation. The bombardment that they did was electromagnetism. It literally changed things. And so, it is a possibility, but it should not be your life's work. This is chasing the ever rich. Don't do that. That's dumb. Right? Especially to the point, if you make gold, you lessen the value of gold. If we haven't learned that lesson by now, I don't know that we ever will. The last 5 years on this planet, we have created more money than has ever been, ever. And it has reflected in our grocery prices. If you were unaware of that, you don't know how inflation works. All of the money that they brought out for that big virus a couple of years, all them rollouts that they printed money, right? It devalued the money. There is more money, it has less value. The same thing will happen with gold if we do manage to make it. It will lose value. And so, not necessarily a good idea. It is, however, alluring, right? It is a good way to recruit some people to your system so that maybe you can have some followers or people who are listening to you, right? I am searching for the way to create gold. Oh, that sounds great. Let's go check him out, right? It's a bad idea. Like all magical mysteries, the secrets of the great work have a triple meaning. They are religious, philosophical, and natural. The philosophical gold in religion is the absolute and supreme reason. In philosophy, it is truth. In visible nature, it is the sun. In philosophy, it is truth. In visible nature, it is the sun. In the subterranean and mineral world, it is the purest and most perfect gold. Hence, the search after the great work is called the search for the absolute, and this work itself is termed the operation of the sun. All masters of science recognize that it is impossible to achieve material results until we have found all the analogies of the universal medicine and the philosophical stone in the 2 superior degrees. Well, let's see about that. All masters of science recognize that it is impossible to achieve material results until we have found all the analogies of universal medicine and the philosophical stone in the 2 superior degrees. All right, so masters of science, he does not mean physics, right? He is talking about magic. Okay, all masters, that's a big word. All is always a big word. Every time they say all, it means every single one that has ever lived ever in the history of ever. That's a big word. To find accordance between all things that ever lived ever in the history of ever, it's going to be a little bit difficult, right? But all masters of science recognize it is impossible. Impossible means that you cannot do it to achieve material results until we have found all the analogies. Are we ever going to find all the analogies? I highly doubt it. Highly, highly, highly doubt it. And so that's going to cast a little bit of problems, right? But until we have found all the analogies of the universal medicine and the philosophical stone in the 2 superior degrees. Now, if we're talking about mental alchemy and the mental philosopher's stone, which you have to mentally alchemize, then yes, okay. But if we are talking about the physical, nah, not so much, right? I have achieved material results. You can say that I've found the philosopher's stone. I have a tendency to alchemize things these days in rapid time. No matter what happens to me, I'm going to find the best in it. That's alchemization on a philosophical level. In a basic level, like as the base, right? And so you could say that I found it. I have not necessarily found the universal medicine, unless you were talking about the manipulation of the energies, which I have healed myself with, right? I haven't practiced alchemy, right? I plan on it. One of these days I will get to it. The closest I get is making this tea these days. That doesn't mean that we won't get there, it's just we're not there yet. I haven't even tried to create a philosophical stone outside of myself. I have not done anything with some universal medicine outside of myself, but I've got results. Back to the text. Then it is affirmed, is the labor simple, light, and inexpensive. Otherwise, it consumes to no purpose, the life and fortune of the bellows blower. Now, this is telling you that if you're not doing mental alchemy, there's not a whole lot of point in it. The physical practice of creating potions and finding out the medicinal benefits of plants is beneficial. Period. The end. Even if it never leads to a universal medicine or a philosophical stone, finding out that time is antibiotic and microbial, that's a beautiful thing, right? Rosemary, same thing. Lemons have wonderful properties, vitamin C and all of these things that we know. Like, that's all part of alchemy. And so it serves a purpose, as long as you're not trying to transmute gold for the entirety of your life, right? Now, again, that is an alluring thing, that I'm going to change this stone into another one. But philosophical alchemy, which is the best kind, it is a simple, light, and inexpensive labor. It is quite literally changing your circumstances into the best possible light. Taking all of the lessons that you learn and applying them to your life is mental alchemy. That is light, simple, inexpensive, right? If you are seeking knowledge, that's a wonderful thing. If you are doing alchemy to find out as much as you can find out about the world around you, wonderful thing. If you are doing it to live forever, not such a wonderful thing. And so you should, right? If you are interested, practice alchemy. Find out what all the values of the things are. Help people, right? Other people can benefit from what you do. That's wonderful. That's great. As long as your motivations are in the correct place, you're going to be fine. Back to the text. The universal medicine is, for the soul, supreme reason and absolute justice. Well, if that's what you're searching for, right? Not some elixir, but supreme reason and absolute justice, that is a valid pursuit. You absolutely should be pursuing that regardless. For the mind, it is mathematical and practical truth. For the body, it is the quintessence, which is a combination of gold and light. Now, mathematical and practical truth plays right into supreme reason and absolute justice, right? That is wonderful pursuits. For the body, the combination of gold and light, yeah, kinda, right? Manipulating the light, that is what I do. That's for the body. That's how I healed myself. It is a golden light, for the most part. There's some dark elements to it. You have to use both sides of it. But yeah, okay, the combination of gold and light, fine. But this is not physical, right? This is, again, the combination of gold and light is going to be the exact same as supreme reason and absolute justice, mathematical and practical truth. It is on a philosophical level of gold and light, not necessarily on the corporeal plane. In the superior world, the first matter of the great work is enthusiasm and activity. Yes, you should be doing positive things in a positive manner, right? That is activity. Enthusiasm is you should be doing it willingly. Not just, I guess I got to go cut the grass, but hey, I get to cut my grass today. I mean, that is a major difference in mindset. That is enthusiasm. In the intermediate world, it is intelligence and industry. In the inferior world, it is labor. In science, it is sulfur, mercury, and salt, volatilized and fixed alternately, compose the azoth of the sages. Sulfur corresponds to the elementary form of fire, mercury to air and water, salt to earth. All the masters in alchemy who have written concerning the great work have employed symbolical and figurative expressions, and have rightly done so, as much to deter the profane from a work which would, for them, be dangerous, as to make themselves intelligible to adepts by revealing the entire world of analogies, which is ruled by the one and sovereign dogma of Hermes. I have two alchemical works that are coming after this, right? We're going to be doing Agrippa's Three Books of the Occult, which is a grimoire, right? An alchemical logbook, and the Picatrix. That is the next two that I have planned, if nothing interferes in between, where we will be talking a great deal about these masters of alchemy who have written concerning the great work and employed symbolical and figurative expressions, and we will be decoding those to the best of my ability. Back to the text. For such, gold and silver are the sun and moon, or the king and queen. That is the analytical interpretation, right? Sulfur is the flying eagle. Mercury is the winged and bearded hermaphrodites, throned upon a cube and crowned with flames. Matter, or salt, is the winged dragon. Metals in the molten state are lions of various colors. Finally, the whole work is symbolized by the pelican and the phoenix. Hermetic art is therefore, at one and the same time, a religion, a philosophy, and a natural science. Considered as a religion, it is that of the ancient Magi and the initiates of all the ages. As a philosophy, its principles may be found in the school of Alexandria and in the theories of Pythagoras. As science, its principles must be sought from Paracelsus, Nicholas Flamel, and Raymond Lully. The science is true only for those who accept and understand the philosophy and religion, and its processes are successful only for the adept who has attained sovereign volition and has thus become the monarch of the elementary world. For the great agent of the solar work is that force described in the Hermetic symbol of the Emerald Table. Once again, we will point out that nobody has a copy of the Emerald Table. We have covered the Emerald Tablet, right? It is part of the Hermetic works. It is in the Ancient Lore playlist, but nobody has an actual Emerald Tablet to compare it to, and so it is up to you to decide whether the things that are contained in the Emerald Table are actually accurate, right? It is entirely likely, maybe even probable, that somebody invented it at some point in time, and that is why we don't have it. It is equally likely or probable that it once existed and that it is now in the possession of one of the various clubs who most decidedly keep it to themselves, whether that is the Vatican or the Smithsonian or the Masons or the Skull and Bones Association, whoever it happens to be that has possession. All of that is speculative. Nobody has ever, as far as I am aware, had a reliable encounter with the Emerald Tablet. It is universal magical power. It is the igneous spiritual motor. It is the Od of the Hebrews and the astral light, according to the expression we have adapted in this work. There is the secret, living, and philosophical fire, of which all Hermetic philosophers speak only with the most mysterious reservations. There is the universal sperm, the secret of which they guarded, representing it only under the emblem of the caduceus of Hermes. Here we will pause. The universal sperm is going to be the Logos, right? The Logos is, before the beginning there was God, and God was infinite and without bound. But God chose to create, and by creating he limited himself from the infinite into the finite existence that we are in. At that moment, when he made the decision and created, the beginning began. Every single thing, every element ever, in the entirety of ever, was created at that moment, in stasis. Perfectly still, no motion, no change, no nothing. And then God spoke and said, I am the light. See the Bible study. And when he said, I am the light, he became the light. And that the speaking of, I am the light, he created light by setting into motion the Spirit, right? Limited divinity is the Spirit. It is still beyond our comprehension. It is still nearly endless, but it is limited by this is the Creator. And so it is the Spirit, right? I serve the Spirit, or I serve God through the Spirit. The Spirit, once it was set into motion, became the Logos. right? The word of creation, the Haya of Genesis, the I am, is exactly the same as the Logos of the New Testament. It is the creative utterance, the beginning, the setting into motion, the beginning, right? That is the sperm. That is the part that is creating the change in everything. The universal sperm is the Logos, not a person. And represented by the emblem of Caduceus, of Hermes. You know what else is representative of the Caducean? Right, you have the staff with the two snakes, right? The Caduceus is two snakes. One goes up in a clockwise manner, one goes up in a counterclockwise manner. That is both the double helix of the DNA and you properly aligned and using the magic rod of creation, which is your spinal column and your 7 internal chakras, in accordance with your 1 external chakra, right? That pattern of light and dark surrounding the chakras looks exactly like a caduceus. Now, in the proper representation of this allegory, both snakes would not be heading up. One would go up, one would come down. The dark goes up, the light comes down, for reasons that I have explained in several other places. Back to the text. Here, then, is the great Hermetic Arcanum, and we reveal it for the first time clearly and devoid of mystical figures. I just did that. What the adepts term dead substances are bodies as found in nature. Living substances are those which have been assimilated and magnetized by the science and will of the operator. I will point out right now that I call what I do, right, the manipulation of the spirit is manipulating the electromagnetic forces of creation, which is the Holy Spirit. All instances of light, change, heat, thought, and motion, all of that is the Logos, which you can take possession of and use. Now, you will never be a representation in full of the Logos. Everybody is. These glasses are, this tea is. There is heat in here, there is change in here. That is the Logos. But those magnetic forces, you can take control of. I talk about that in my book, which is linked down below. I'll have one video up here from it, which is open to the public. If you choose to have a membership, you can hear me read the entire book, right? You don't have to buy it. But I describe these processes because this is what I do. I move the magnetized energy. That's how I healed myself right now. If this is your first video, I healed myself in my throat. Like, I asked God, can I have some healing? And he showed me how to heal myself. And it is this. It is moving the energies. You move the bottom up, you move the top down, you sit it in the right place, and it works. That is through sheer force of will, and isometrics is the way that I have to do it because I cannot visualize it. I have described that in the book. It is part of the playlist, and it is in other places, right? There's just described in the Esoteric and the Infinite Integrations playlist in several places. Therefore, the great work is something more than a chemical operation. It is an actual creation of the human word, initiated into the power of the Word of God Himself. The speaking into existence that God did when He said, I am the light, I am the waters, right? When He said all of that, you can do the same thing, right? I tell you, as part of the manifestation video, I am is the phrase to use, right? It is taking charge of that power, right? It is embracing that you are a representative of God, not a God. You are a representative of God. Your divinity is a small fraction of the possibility. And so you do get to use the Word of God. It is quite literally the same utterance for you as it was recorded for Him. Now, I don't read Hebrew, so I have to skip over this. This Hebrew text, which we transcribe in proof of the authenticity and reality of our discovery, is derived from the rabbinical Jew Abraham, the master of Nicholas Flamel, and is found in his occult commentary on the Sefer Jazira, the sacred book of the Kabbalah. It would have to be, because none of that is going to be contained in the Old Testament, which is the only place that has Abraham, right? You know what's funny? You know what's really funny? Like, this is a side note, but did you know that in Kings and Chronicles there's no reference to Moses? This commentary is extremely rare, but the sympathetic potencies of our chain led us to the discovery of a copy, which has been preserved since the year 1643 in the Protestant church at Rouen. On its first page there is written, Ex Dono, then an illegible name, Dii Magni. The creation of gold in the great work takes place by transmutation and multiplication. Raymond Lully states that in order to make gold, we must have gold and mercury, while in order to make silver, we must have silver and mercury. Then he adds, by mercury, I understand that mineral spirit which is so refined and purified that it gilds the seed of gold and silvers the seed of silver. Now, mercury is a byproduct of the refining process of gold. It is contained in the ore, mostly. There are other elements or other ores that contain the element of mercury, and so it is entirely possible to get mercury from gold, and that would be a requirement. I am not, I've been a blacksmith. I was not a goldsmith. I've never smelted gold. I've never done that. I've done it with iron. I've made steel. I've used steel to make things. I've never done silver or gold, so I cannot speak with much authority on that process. Doubtless, he is speaking of odd or astral light. Salt and sulfur are serviceable in the work only for the preparation of mercury. It is with mercury above all that the magnetic agent must be assimilated and incorporated. Now, this is going to be on the spiritual level, right? You have salt, sulfur, and mercury. Salt is the body. Sulfur is the fire, which is going to be the spirit. And then the mercury is the soul, the part that thinks, right? The individualized piece of divinity assigned to the temple so that it can navigate in 5D space. Just so we're clear about what's being talked about here, right? Salt is the body, sulfur is the spirit, that is the change, and then the mercury is going to be the soul. Paracelsus, Raymond Lully, and Nicholas Flamel seem alone to have perfectly understood this mystery. Basil Valentine and Trevisian indicated after an incomplete manner which might be capable of another interpretation. But quite the most curious things which we have found on this subject are indicated by the mystical figures and magical legends in a book of Henry Coonroth entitled Amphitheatrium Sapientiae Aeternae. I am going to kick that out because we may be doing that book at some point. Coonrath represents and resumes the most learned Gnostic schools and connects the symbology with the mysticism of Synesius. He affects Christianity in expressions and in signs, but it is easy to see that his Christ is the Abraxas, the luminous pentagram radiating on the astronomical cross. The incarnation in humanity of the sovereign Son celebrated by the Emperor Julian. It is the luminous and living manifestation of that Ruach Elohim, which, according to Moses, brooded and worked upon the bosom of the waters at the birth of the world. It is the man-son, the monarch of light, the supreme magus, the master and conqueror of the serpent, and in the fourfold legend of the evangelists, Coonroth finds the allegorical key of the great work. One of the pentacles of his magical book represents the philosophical stone erected in the middle of a fortress, surrounded by a wall in which there are 20 impracticable gates. One alone conducts to the sanctuary of the great work. Above the stone there is a triangle placed upon a winged dragon, and on the stone is graven the name of Christ, qualified as the symbolical image of all nature. It is by him alone, he adds, that thou canst obtain the universal medicine for men, animals, vegetables, and minerals. Yeah, I'm going to go with no on that one. The winged dragon. Now, if you are looking at Christ as the symbolical image of Logos, not the literal personification of Logos, then that would work. But as a person, it absolutely will not. And the graven name of Christ, there might be some problems if you go back to the Old Testament on that one. The winged dragon, ruled by the triangle, represents, therefore, the Christ of Kunrath. That is, the sovereign intelligence of life and light, as an allegory. It is the secret of the pentagram. It is the highest dogmatic and practical mystery of traditional magic. Thence, unto the grand and ever incommunicable maxim, there is only one step. The Kabbalistic figures of Abraham the Jew, which imparted to Flamel the first desire for knowledge, are no other than the 22 keys of the tarot, elsewhere initiated and resumed in the 12 keys of Basil Valentin. There, the sun and moon reappear under the figures of the emperor and empress. Mercury is the juggler. The great Hierophant is the adept or abstractor of the quintessence. Death, judgment, love, the dragon or devil, the hermit or lame elder, and finally, all the remaining symbols are there found with their chief attributes, and almost in the same order. It could have scarcely been otherwise, since the tarot is the primeval book and the keystone of the occult sciences. There is no reason to believe that. We have done the tarot. I am doing daily tarot readings. I like the tarot. I think it is a perfectly fine divinatory tool for self-revelation and advancement along the mortal path. There is no reason to believe that it is the primeval book and keystone of the occult sciences. The current tarot does not necessarily accord at all with the antique tarot, and there are many reasons to doubt that. What tarot is we have agreed upon certain symbols meaning certain things. That is perfectly fine. They are up for interpretation. They can be interpreted by different people in different ways according to which keys you have learned. All of that is perfectly fine, but it is subjective, right? Anything divinatory is going to be subjective, most especially if it is not clearly defined. This thing will happen on this day in this way, right? That is prophecy. Tarot is not really prophecy. Tarot is more about, let's read the energy a little ways out and see what challenges may be there. Not in specifics, but in very general terms. And so it is a useful tool, but I don't know about the keystone to occult sciences. I believe that the keystone is going to be prayer, fasting, and meditation, and that leads to divine revelation through intuition, which is how I do most of the things that I do and talk about the things that I talk about, has been because of that, right? Personal revelation due to prayer, fasting, and meditation before I ever considered tarot. Before I ever considered any of these other works, right? Prayer, fasting, and meditation led me to be healed before any of the other things. That leads me to believe that that would be a keystone, right? Keystone being necessary to the construction thereof. Back to the text. It must be hermetic because it is Kabbalistic. No. Fuck no. 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 I just emphatically no. It does not have to be hermetic because it is Kabbalistic. Those are two different things. Enclosing two different time spans in two different locations of physicality, right? Kabbalism came about, who knows when, probably around the Second Temple when we got Genesis and all of that. That's probably when the Kabbalah came about. Hermeticism is significantly older than that. Hermeticism is all the way back to ancient Egypt before the Jews went there and had to be rescued by the man from Midian, right? It's not the same thing. Now, can Kabbalism be based upon Hermeticism? Absolutely. But is it the same? No, not at all. The Jews didn't believe the same things as the guys who believed in Hermes. There is no direct representative of Isis or Osiris in Judaism, right? There are some correlations that you can draw, but the names are different, right? The accents are kind of the same, but the names are different. The Jews took other people's stuff. They did it quite effectively, right? They took their legends, they took their histories, they took their land through genocide. It was a wild thing. Read through Chronicles and Kings. The things that happened, oh my God, terrible, terrible. It must be Hermetic because it is Kabbalistic, magical, and theosophical. That is an assumption you are making. So, also, we find in the combination of its 12th and 22nd keys, superimposed one upon the other, why? The hieroglyphic revelation of the solution of the trees or posts, forming the Hebrew letter N. Right? This is arbitrary. Right? I have problem with arbitrary math, just like I have complicated math. 12 and 22, why are you overlaying those? At what point do you decide to overlay? Like, there's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. There are 22 tarot cards. What made you say that 22 and 12? Right? If anything, I would expect 24 and 12 or 22 and 11, right? Not 22 and 12. That is completely arbitrary. There is no overlap there. There's no, what, huh? The math don't work. The man's arms, forming the Hebrew letter. The man's arms, grand work, and its mysteries. The 12th key represents a man hanging by one foot from a gibbet composed of 3, constitute a triangle with his head, and his entire hieroglyphical shape is that of the reverse triangle surmounted by a cross, an alchemical symbol known to all adepts and representing the accomplishment of the great work. The 22nd key, which bears the number 21, because the full which precedes it carries no numeral, see my tarot explanations please, represents a youthful female divinity, slightly veiled and running in a flowering circle supported at 4 corners by the 4 beasts of the Kabbalah. Okay, what? 22, I would have to look up what 22 is, but in the Italian tarot, this divinity has a rod in either hand. In the Biscansan tarot, the 2 wands are in one hand, while the other is placed upon her thigh, both equally remarkable symbols of magnetic action, either alternate in its polarization or simultaneous by opposition and transmission. The great work of Hermes is, therefore, an essentially magical operation, and the highest of all, for it supposes the absolute in science and volition. There is light in gold, gold in light, and light in all things. The intelligent will, which assimilates the light, directs, in this manner, the operations of substantial form and uses chemistry solely as a secondary instrument. The influence of human will and intelligence upon the operation of nature, dependent in part on its labor, is otherwise a fact so real that all serious alchemists have succeeded in proportion to their knowledge and their faith. Yes, right. The influence of human will and intelligence upon the operations of nature. And that is what I do with the manipulation of the electromagnetic forces of creation, which is the Holy Spirit. And I do believe that it is a fact so real that all serious alchemists have succeeded in proportion to their knowledge and their faith, and have reproduced their thought in the phenomena of the fusion, salification, and recomposition of metals. And I say that with a caveat that Mr. Levi was almost certainly not one of those people. Agrippa, that is the next one we are going to be doing, who was a man of immense erudition and fine genius, but pure philosopher and skeptic, could not transcend the limits of metallic analysis and synthesis. Attilia, a confused, obscure, fantastic, but persevering Kabbalist, reproduced in alchemy the eccentricities of his misconstrued and mutilated tarot. Metals, in his crucibles, assumed extraordinary forms, which excited the curiosity of all Paris, with no greater profit to the operator than the fees which were paid by his visitors. An obscure bellows blower of our own time, who died mad, poor Louis Cambriel, really cured his neighbors, and, by the evidence of all of his parish, brought back to life a smith who was his friend. For him, metallic work took most inconceivable and apparently illogical forms, One day he beheld the figure of God himself in his crucible, incandescent like the sun, transparent as crystal, his body composed of triangular conglomerations, which Cambriel naively compared to quantities of tiny pearls. One of our friends, who is a learned Kabbalist but belongs to an initiation which we regard as erroneous, performed recently the chemical operations of the great work and succeeded in weakening his eyes through the excessive brilliance of the Athanor. You should not look directly at semi-molten metals for the same reason that you would not look at a welding rod when people are welding. It will burn your retinas. It's like looking at the sun. It's an extraordinarily bad idea. He created a new metal which resembles gold but is not gold and hence has no value. It's probably titanium. Raymond Lully, Nicholas Flamel, and most probably Henry Coonroth made true gold, nor did they take away their secret with them, for it is enclosed in their symbols, and they have further indicated the sources from which they drew for its discovery and for the realization of its effects. It is this same secret which we now ourselves make public. Well, we will see when that comes. That's going to bring us to the end of this chapter, and hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. I understand I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something I apologize for. I have done work. Now, I don't have gold. I haven't made gold. I don't even have my ring on right now to show you, right? I'm not about manifesting money. It is not on my priority list at all. I would love to have money. I would love to be able to pay my bills on time without worrying about it, and buy food, and pay somebody to cut my grass. Those three things are not occurring simultaneously here, right now. I could. I know the procedures. I know the steps in order to do so. It's a bad idea. Manifesting money has to be motivated by greed, right? Even the most pure intentions for it is still going to be rooted in greed, and it's going to have to reverberate. It is much better to manifest success in your life in whatever manner it's going to take, to manifest inspiration, to bring you success in your life, to manifest healing within yourself so that you can actually embrace the things. The works that I have done have been entirely internal. There have been zero tools involved. It is all prayer, fasting, and meditation. And the energy work, right? Prayer is asking God things. It is making requests. It is talking about your desires, your hopes, and your fears. Fasting allows you to hear back, right? It clears the receptors so that you can more accurately hear the divine. And then meditation is shutting up. It is not thinking. It is not moving the energies. It is just simply sitting in the oneness of all things, melding your existence into everything's existence to the point where you can no longer differentiate yourself from your surroundings. And then you can hear. Then you get the inspiration. Then the divine revelation comes. Now, that is the steps that I took to get the information that I relay, right? The ability to manipulate the electromagnetics came from prayer, fasting, and meditation. The healing that I have done, I've healed my throat, I've healed my shoulder, I'm healing my back, I'm healing my leg. All of these things have producible results. I believe that they have worked even if no one else on the entire planet does. It was not until I started doing these things that the healing took place. Even though I was doing some of the other stuff, right? I was exercising, it wasn't really helping. I was losing some weight, but I wasn't getting the pain relief. When I embraced this path, I got the pain relief. When I embraced this path, the cyst broke. When I embraced this path, my shoulder healed. That is a mental thing, right? That is me overcoming the obstacles that I had placed in my own way, manipulating the energies in a way that some people don't even believe is a possibility, but I do. It is entirely possible that we can, through sheer force of will, change lead into gold, but it is not something that I will ever practice. It's simply not going to happen. I will alchemize all of the metaphysical gold possible. When I broke my leg that very same day, I was alchemizing. I was finding the best in the situation. I was looking for the lessons attached to it. That's alchemy, right? That is mental alchemy. I plan on doing physical alchemy. I plan on getting all of the tools and experimenting with all of the things to see what I can do. Right? I don't expect different results than anybody else, but it's a way to increase knowledge, and that is always a good thing. The main part of alchemy is mental discipline. It is learning to balance between the virtues and the vices, to walk between Boaz and Yakin, not cleaving to either pillar, but walking freely between the two, utilizing both of them as need be for the creation of your desired life. That is the alchemy that I am focused on, right? I plan on doing the other ones, but that's the one that's more important. That's the part that we're going to focus on. That's what all of these studies are about, imparting to you that you have the ability to change your life. There is nothing special about me as far as I am concerned, right? I say all of the time, anything I can do, you can do better. You can do anything better than me. Yes, you can, right? I believe that. I don't believe that there's anything special about me. There might be. I have green eyes. I have heterochromia, which means I have two colored eyes. I'm left-handed. I have aphantasia. There are a myriad of things that separate me from most of humanity. Any one of those could be the variable that makes me able to do magic, but I don't believe so. I believe that we were all created with the ability to do what I do. We just have to come to the realization through prayer, fasting, and meditation, and doing the work. If you're willing to do the work, I got some playlists for you. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment. If you agree or disagree with anything that was stated, put it in the box down below, and if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If there is another work you would like to see me discuss in the manner that we are doing here, drop that in the box as well. And if you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of my book. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pit Steak. Peace.